Good morning, afternoon or evening, and welcome back to Top 5s. Today's video is another one for new players, because if you just watch the best players play, then it can be very tempting to copy their choices of faction. However, I don't recommend making your choice in this manner, as some of these factions can be very difficult to master, albeit once you get to know the game a bit, they can be truly awesome. Therefore, today's video is about the 5 civilizations that you should consider when you first start playing, and a little bit more about them as well. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And straight in at number 5 we have the Athenians, a beautifully rounded faction, and one of my favourites, full stop. They start with slingers, which are a fantastic range unit that has better range and attack repetition than skirmishers, and most civilizations start with them, as well as having spearmen, the ideal defence against cavalry. They also have additional range units available after Phase 1, solid siege, a great navy if you're playing a naval map, and sword cavalry for defending against opponents' ram raids. They even have a Phase 2 champion unit for when you've moved beyond the basics, which makes them totally scalable. But the main reason they sneak in at number 5 is that they allow for a very simple strategy: mass slingers in formation with some spearmen and the hero Iphicrates. This formation of soldiers can be deadly and very easy to learn to use. So, picking number 5 wasn't actually easy, but after looking at the options, I would have to say that the Athenians deserve their solid 5th place. Roaring in at number 4 we have the Iberians, and basically this is because they start with walls, which gives you an excellent protection from very early cavalry rushes, while you're still learning the ropes. They also have rams, which are the easiest of the siege weapons to use. On top of this, you add an excellent set of heroes, access to slingers as well as skirmishers and swordsmen, and you can see how they got into this list. Now you will have to consider that their buildings take a little longer to build than other factions, but that's because they have more hit points. And with the revered monument giving extra attack bonuses within its aura, you still probably have the most solid defensive formation that there is, which is really helpful when you're still learning to master your economy. So, overall, these are definitely a good civilization for new players to try out, and they should allow you to learn a fair bit about the game rather than just be killed through early harassment. And with that, you should get the chance to move up quite a few rating points pretty quickly. Just sneaking in ahead at number 3 are the Imperial Romans, and they're in because of basically their excellent array of siege weapons and due to their starting cavalry, which are the best for both defending rushes and carrying them out. Now, as a matter of fact, a few of these cavalry will kill an opponent's woman incredibly quickly, and because of the nature of the cavalry being hit and run and them having a 60-point hit bonus over range cavalry, they're also a really good way to learn the art of harassment. When you add to this that the entrenched army camp is also one of the most effective structures in the game, and it can lead to attacks from within the enemy's territory, you do have a special kind of civilization. It's important to keep in mind though that they do have a really solid array of infantry, but they do lack a bit when it comes to long range, as both their infantry and cavalry range troops are only skirmishers. If they had access to slingers and possibly sword cavalry, they may even get a bit higher on the list, but without those they are still a great choice for a new player, and so they sit in 3rd place. And now that leaves us with the 2 most similar factions in the game at 1 and 2, but in which order? In at number 2 we have the home of Asterix and Obelix, and that's the Gauls. Now both the Celtic factions are quick to develop, the reason being that all their buildings offer a population cap bonus, and that means it's easier to avoid getting housed with these civilizations. The trade-off for this though is that their buildings are a little bit soft and can be destroyed relatively easily, especially if you compare them with the Iberians, but that does mean that they're also quicker to build, which again helps with their speedy development. They also only have a few soldier types to choose from, which may sound negative, but paradoxically is an advantage for a beginner, as there's just less to learn. So fundamentally, it's a case of train some slingers, skirmishers, spearmen, a ram, a healer or 2, as well as the hero Vercingetorix, and point them all at the enemy. You even have sword cavalry if you need to defend against an opponent's siege weapons. For the beginner, there's really very little to learn in terms of the fundamentals, and the addition of naked fanatics gives them a little something else if you want to broaden your horizons a little later. But essentially, they boom fast and pack a punch, so they take a worthy place only very fractionally behind their Celtic brethren, the Britons. And so, taking top spot, we have the Britons. They have all the advantages of the Gauls, what with their housing bonus and a very similar lineup of soldiers. The only real difference being that they don't have access to Phase 2 champions, the naked fanatics that we spoke of briefly, but by way of compensating, they do start with slingers. Now this means it's actually possible to destroy your opponent's civic centre in phase 1, and there have been many games where an early slinger rush has knocked out even the best players, which means that Britons are not just great for newcomers but also veterans of the game. It's for this reason that they're offered a banned civ when there's an option like that in a match. An additional bonus ahead of the Gauls is that if you're on a water map, there is the island settlement. Now this little beauty is effectively a civic centre in the water. It allows you to train soldiers and ships. You also have access to war dogs, which don't add to your population, but can still cause chaos in your enemy's base. And finally, I just prefer their heroes, albeit by a whisker. So, rounding out the top 5, at number 1 we have the Britons, and as far as I'm concerned, they are worthy toppers of this list. And that's the end of another edition of Top 5s. What did you think? Would you prefer to see the Seleucids in there? How about the population bonus and archers of the Persians or the Mauryaans? And who can forget the toughest faction in the game, the Spartans? Well, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, do all the rest of the stuff, ring the bell, everything like that. And I'll see you all in a week's time. Obrigado e adeus.